Hey everyone, welcome back to Bowtech Live. Today is Target Tuesday. We haven't had an episode for a little bit. Last time we had Paige Pierce on here with us, and we've had a couple tournaments going on. We wanted to take this great opportunity to bring on another one of our big pros here at Bowtech. It's Tim the Hammer Gillingham. He actually just came off a couple great tournaments. ASA tournament, he made a trip down to Mexico, and we wanted to bring him on and talk to him a little bit about those tournaments, as well as get some questions answered. We have a lot of people asking about bow setups for 3D archery, target archery in general. So get your questions in. Drop them here on the Facebook page. We'll answer them as many as we can throughout the event here. But so we have them live. So thanks for joining us, Tim. You are, I think, out at the Easton Center doing a little practice, a little bit of training with some guys.
Yeah, just out here working. George Riles asked me to come out and, talk to some of the para guys. Everybody's headed down to Arizona Cup this week. And he's doing a clinic here with them, and myself and him and Dave Cousins are here, working with them a little bit. So that's just trying to impart some of our wisdom and build our para, our para team up to where, they can be more competitive.
Well, that's a pretty tough schedule. You've really done back-to-back trips now every weekend, right?
Yeah, it's been a long stretch here, so kind of brutal.
Yeah, well, let's talk about those trips. So, guys, again, get your questions in. I'm watching here on. Oh, Alan Convery says hello, Tim. He's the first one in here.
Hey, Alan.
So get your questions in. I'll be watching. We'll fire those over to Tim. So let's talk about the ASA. So you just came off of the Newbury Pro-Am, right, in Alabama. And you made a transition this year over to senior class, and you won this event in Alabama, and I think I shouldn't say pretty easily, but it looks like you didn't really break a sweat. I know some of the guys might be watching, and you were pretty calm and cool and collected.
In the shoot-off, I mean, you got a lead going in the shoot-off. I had a really good first. It's always kind of scary when you do something new, because you don't want to be that guy, You got a lot of expectations to live up to,
Right.
And I wasn't really ready when I got there. I had 2 days getting home from indoor nationals, and I made a mistake with a scope lens, and I ended up rebuilding my whole scope setup there. Changed releases at the class or at the ASA. I got a new true ball. What do you call it? Abyss from Brandon at True Ball, and so far I'm getting along really well with it. But when you change stuff, it makes you're always wondering if it's going to be as good as you think it's going to be. And
right
before I went out on my round on Friday, I shot the Sims course, and I shot 9 out of 10 on it in the first ASA, and I'd only hit 3 out of 10, and I was a little disturbed because I was getting these weird left arrows. And so I go out on my round, and my very first target, I'm judging yardage now because I'm in the senior pro class. And I judged the yardage perfect, and I shot like 5 inches straight left. And I'm just like, I'm just thinking, do I switch back to my old release, or do I do this and do that? And I'm just like, man, I stopped after the team shoot and shot 3 arrows at this 44-yard red pig, and I 12'd every one of them. And I thought, no, you better stick with it, and I stuck with it. I ended up having to move my sight for whatever reason, it was windy there, so maybe I just didn't get my sight mark perfect, but I ended up hitting 14 out of 20, 14 out of the last 19 12s. It was just one of them days,
Right.
You could do no wrong, so. But that gave me a pretty good lead going into Saturday, but, Dwayne Price, he put the pressure on him, which I expect, me coming into this pro division will definitely make guys work a little harder. They'll be, you'll see the scores get bumped up, and that's my goal in there too, is to, to set a new paradigm.
Well, you see a lot of those guys. I mean, those of you that watched the shoot off of the shoot off that Tim was in, you see those guys that you shut off against are the consistent guys that are always in there between Dwayne and Tony. Those guys are, I think, about everyone that I watch, which is pretty much all of them. At least those two guys are up there in that division. So some pretty tough competition there.
Yeah, I think a lot of times what happens is guys go into that class and I don't know. just think they don't work as hard at it. They lose the fire in the belly a little bit,
Sure.
you know. And I kind of experience that from time to time, a little burnout, and you know, you wake up every morning and your shoulders hurt a lot more than they used to, and all your eyesight's continually changing a
Sure.
little bit. You know, I couldn't see the same scope setup last year that I could see this year. Now, it took me a while to get myself wrapped around what I was going to do, but I think I got it pretty good now. So,
was that a tough change for you, kind of mentally, making yourself or wanting to make that move from the known pro over to the unknown senior? I know you've shot unknown a ton, you know, and you're awesome at it, but just
because I'm a proponent of known distance does not mean I'm not good at unknown or I
Right.
don't like it per se. It's the fact that it's not available to everybody.
right.
Okay? I have 130 targets in my backyard. It's available to me. But if you want a healthy, robust sport, it has to be available to
Sure.
masses. And so, you know, it's a couple of things. You know, maybe it'll foment a little change a little faster over there. Maybe not. You know, maybe we keep Bowtech at the top of the podium more. Maybe Matthews will want to change more. Huh?
There you go. There you go.
They kind of tend to hold the purse strings in a lot of this decision making, I think. So,
Right.
you know, I'm going to work hard at just trying to keep, you know, my sponsors and Bowtech at the top of the podium. But I also want to shoot scores that are as high as the known pros. That's going to give a lot more credibility. I mean, I only one other pro, you know, Dan McCarthy shot a higher score than I did.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, I had a great day followed by a so-so day, you know, and you can't have so-so days 2 in a row or you're going to get hurt, you know,
Right.
even in the senior pro class. So, you know, after I fived the very first target, and then you're just like, you have all these thoughts going through your head. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. You're going to catch hell for that, you know. So,
Right. And I see people make comments here and there, and not on our stuff, but just in general on some of the posts and things like that for the ASA, or not the ASA specifically, but I shouldn't say a lot, but you always see people saying that the senior class isn't as competitive. I'll be the first one to say it's not true because, I mean, like we just said, Tony and Dwayne, and I mean, what's your response there? I think he touched on it a little bit.
I don't think, you know, the thing about the seniors is I think they're still one of the most valuable assets, you know, to companies, and because they have been in the sport for so long, they have so many contacts and so much credibility. Do I think the scores can be boosted up in the senior pro? Sure. I mean, you look what Keith Trail did this year at Vegas. He shot a 900. I mean, there's no reason you can't. It's just a lot of times shooters end up doing just what they need to. I always say that about the girls. I think the girls could shoot a lot higher if they were forced to. You know what I mean?
Right.
They need a Levi Morgan in their mix, you know, kind of, you know, to change the paradigm. Because Levi did that, you know, in the Open Pro. He come in, you know, he just didn't see there was no ceiling. There was not a score. It was, I'm going to 12 every target. And that's really the way you have to attack a 3D course, or any course as far as that goes.
We've got a couple good questions coming in here. Bradley Bentley is saying, recently switched to shooting the Fanatic 3.0. Now he has 3 of them. He's loving the 65% comfort setting so far. But what could he expect to feel if he swapped over to the performance side? So what's your kind of feelings between the comfort performance, kind of what the suited, maybe your personal setup?
Some of it depends on the cam size and the draw length. I mean, on my BT Mag X, I feel a big difference in it on the different settings. On my, of course, it doesn't have performance and setting. It has the 3 different settings, but on my Fanatics, I don't feel a lot of difference. That cam is really smooth. In the smaller cam, you might see a little bit more. I see about 2 to 3 foot per second when you make everything exactly the same. So I tend to operate in the performance setting just because I don't see any negative to it.
Sure, take advantage of the speed a little bit, the extra speed. Yeah. Another good one here, Lewis Monroe. This is kind of an open question, but I think you'll have some good insight here. What tuning advice would you give someone with a 33-inch draw length? So is there any quirks, any nuances there that somebody at my draw length, say 27.5, we don't have to deal with?
Absolutely. The very first thing I tell a guy with anything over a 31.5, 32-inch draw length, I say, get an overdraw. Okay? put an overdraw on the bow because you're going to have a very, very difficult time tuning really long arrows, and you're going to have a hard time finding arrows. I'm a 33.5-inch draw length. I shoot a Hamsky overdraw with a rest. My arrow length, my shaft length is usually 29 or 28 3/4 on my target bows, and about 29 inches on my BT mag for hunting. And that's just based on where the roller guard is and how far back I can get the rest. And if you'll torque tune your bows, that means I put the rest where I want, and then I move the sight in closer to the bow until it torque tunes properly. If anybody, wants that information, I've written an article on it that I can email out. Maybe it's something we should post up on the website.
I would love to. That's awesome. Yeah.
Maybe I'll send it over to you, and you can get it posted up.
Would love to.
It'll teach guys how to torque tune their bows and get their sight and their rest in the area where they complement themselves the most. I shoot an overdraw for everything, and I see zero negative to it in terms of forgiveness or accuracy. That's the most important thing. Tuning is, the number one problem guy with a long draw length is going to have is underspined arrows. You're going to have to do a lot of fine tuning your arrows. I just put a 11 video series up on Gold Tip's YouTube channel that covers my entire tuning procedure. If you follow it to a T, you're never going to have a flyer.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to be able to identify whether an arrow is too weak or not. There really is no such thing as an arrow that's too stiff out of a compound bow with a release. But there's definitely a downside to shooting a weak arrow.
That's so great advice. Now here's a good question. Paige was just down here 2 weekends ago. She did a seminar here in our shop, and this is a question that she was asked in the shop, and somebody just asked it here as well, about bow weight. So Christopher Wagner, why do you think some top pros are shooting so much weight out front compared to the back?
Well, we just, one of the things we talked about here with these guys is stabilizing. Stabilization is very critical to holding well, but it's 100% based on holding weight, okay? So it's a leveraging issue, okay? If you're only holding 9 pounds of holding weight, you can't put a bunch of weight on the front of your bow, okay? Because you don't have the leverage to pull back unless you're one of them guys can really reef into the wall really hard and hold it up there. My bows, I have 21.5 pounds of holding weight. That allows me to run a 33-inch bar. I think I'm running 9 ounces on my target bar right now. 8 on my 3D and 9 on my target bow. But I set all my bows up to the exact same holding weight. So it's a combination of draw length. If your draw length gets too long, you don't have the leverage to hold that bow up. If it gets too short, you only have the leverage until your muscle failure happens. So you want to find that sweet spot where you're not too long and you're not too short. I also start with my bottom of my arrow at the top of the burger hole. And that puts the loop a little bit higher up on the string, and it creates a little bit more leverage that way too. If you put the arrow through the center of the burger hole, I find on most of our bows that I've shot, you'll tend to see a little bit more sagging, and you won't be able to hold that mass weight up on the front of the bar. But weight on the end of the stabilizer is going to slow your sight picture down more than anything else you're going to do. That being said, just like FOC or anything else, there's a balance to everything.
Perfect. Here's a gold tip question from Matt Moore. He's shooting the gold tip 22s. What tip weight do you recommend on a 28-inch arrow that is on a 60-pound bow?
Well, that's a very open-ended question.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a little more than the tip weight into that one.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and you need to ask more questions when you ask these. Number one, I need to know, is it IBO rules? Is it ASA rules? Is it, what are you using the arrow for? Mm-hmm. I'm guessing it's probably IBO 3D rules, so I'm going to just say whatever grains you out 5 grains per pound. I shoot 80 grains in it in a 22 series for IBO, and it shoots awesome. I shoot a fire knock, push-in knock in the back to keep the weight down in the rear, and I shoot a 4-fletch, what do I got on there? I think I have a 1.75 Q2I Fusion 2 in a 4-fletch pattern. It drives tacks. I mean, in a setup like in IBO where you're dealing with yardage judging and it's a vertical game before it's a left and right game. Mm-hmm. Do I have to shoot a little bit better shot with that kind of setup? Yeah, slightly. But I'd rather concentrate on shooting a good shot than, worrying about the yardage as much.
Looks like Matt replied as ASA.
Oh, ASA now. Again, then I have to ask the question, is it known distance or unknown distance? My rules are for known distance, of course, I would say I like to stay at 270 foot per second. So most of my arrow setups I build around speed. Okay, identify the speed that I want to run, then I build the arrow to it. Okay, so let's say I want to go elk hunting, but my hunting bows I like to shoot fast. So I want to shoot at least 305 to 325, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I'm going to pick my arrows based on that. For IBO, I want to shoot 66 pounds, so I know that 330 grains is grained out. Okay, so then I'm going to build my arrow around that weight. If you're a 26-inch draw length, 330 grains may be a different combination than if you're a 33.5-inch draw length. Okay, so if it's ASA unknown, then you want to identify what arrow weight does it take for me to get the max speed in my class. If I'm allowed 290 feet per second, I can go up to 296. That's the speed I'm going to build that arrow at. So there is no such thing as perfect. It's kind of this incremental scale of importance.
Sure.
But it'll shoot with virtually anything. I won IBO World one year with 50 grain points in triple X's. Okay, shooting 340 foot a second. It doesn't get any more critical than that. But I didn't shoot a single 8 all weekend.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
You know, you just have to. You know, this is the balance in everything. But where they allow you to shoot a forgiving setup in known distance, I think you want to take advantage of that. You know, you don't want to go too slow because then it creates what, you know, I call it, it's similar to like barrel lock time with pistol and rifle shooters. If you get too long of a barrel, it works really good on a bench rest where you're not moving. But if you're standing in positional shooting, then you want that bullet out of the barrel quicker. Same thing happens with a bow. You know, you're moving around a little bit. You don't, if you're a guy that holds really, really still and the shot breaks and you follow through real consistent every time, you can get away with a little bit slower bow than a guy like myself, maybe, that kind of times the shot. I'm a 33-inch draw length, so it takes a little longer for my arrow to clear the bow. So you can get away. You know, it's just a small balancing act. But I think the threshold is somewhere around that 270 range, you know, for known distance.
That makes a lot of sense. Guys, keep getting these questions, and these are great questions. While we still have more coming in here, Tim, let's transition from ASA. Let's talk about versus. So this tournament was a new tournament that Ruben put on down in Mexico. Brand new tournament. It looks like it was pretty popular from what I observed on social media. So tell us about this tournament and kind of, you know, just walk us through it. Your days there and how it was around, what it looked like.
Yeah, Ruben has a good archery shop there in Guadalajara, Mexico, and he's done a wonderful job with this tournament. And it's a very professionally run tournament, very, very well organized, and it's a really unique format, similar to what I've shot a tournament over in Holland one time. It was called Face to Face, and it's similar to that. It's a round robin. So basically, they'll group you in a group of 6 shooters. You shoot a qualifying round, and then they group you in a group of 6 shooters, and then you shoot a match against everyone in that pool. Okay. Then the top 2 guys in that pool advance. So you win. If you win a match, you get 2 points. If you tie a match, you get a point, right? So the top 2 point holders out of those 6 advance. But let's say, for example, you got put in a really tough pool, but you shot a really good score. They also take the top so many scores too overall. Okay, so it'll be the top 2 winners of the pools, and then you'll get so many scores based on what the next cut is. So it's a very unique format. You get a lot of experience shooting matches, and as it gets closer and closer to the end, the strategy is completely. I mean, it's not the strategy is to shoot 10s, of course, all the time, but it takes a lot less points to win the pool as it gets tougher and tougher. So just tying a match may be the difference between winning or losing. So it was a nail biter.
It looked like the weather was pretty decent versus what you kind of dealt with at the ASA shoot prior.
Yeah, it was about 90 degrees the whole time, just light winds. So it just, other than the Montezuma's Revenge, it was a pretty stand-up kind of.
You brought it up. I wasn't going to touch that. I wasn't going to go near that, but I'll let you. You brought that up a little bit, so. Yeah, we'll leave that one alone though. So we had a good question as a kind of a follow-up. You're talking about running your T-handle earlier, making that switch a little bit. Adam Bennett, Tim, I see you're using a T-handle release now. How come? Oh, yes, he's saying how come the switch from the wrist strap that we're all used to seeing?
one of the I'm back and forth a lot. But one of the difficulties with a wrist strap is maintaining the exact length, okay, of your drawing. Okay, you always, no matter. I tried making a double strap that double buckled, but you always have enough play in your skin and stuff that you just can't seem to get that exact feel like you can with a handheld. You know, a handheld you can just, and I also like my anchor point better with a handhold. I've always liked my anchor point better. You know, I just bring this string into my nose, and with a wrist strap, I kind of, scrunch my face up, and I just shoot it better that way. But I mean, I think you might see me go back and forth. I like to try different things. You know, I revisited a release that I like the idea of, but I've always kind of had a little bit leery of shooting, hook style jaws. But it seems to be shooting phenomenally well for me,
Right.
And I kind of like what I'm feeling right now, so that's probably what I'm gonna stick with.
I think in what you just said is probably your motto for life is I like to try different things, because if anybody knows you, I think they probably agree with that statement that you definitely like to try new things.
Right,
But
if
try and improve your game.
If you never try anything, you never learn anything.
Right.
Okay, and if you're not always trying to get better, then you obviously have thought you obviously think you're already hit the pinnacle of your achievement, and I don't believe I've hit even close to the pinnacle of my achievement.
Right.
I'm constantly working. I'm constantly working on the aspects of my game that are not what I deem up to par.
I'm going to put out a quick question for everybody on here. So the first person that can answer this first, I'm going to give you one of our new Bowtech hats. So Tim mentioned the T-handle release that he was shooting in Alabama. So the first person to tell me what model release it was, you guys will get one of these cool hats. So I'm going to kind of watch here as they pop in. Somebody might have popped in better. So while we're actually, Tim, tell us. Here's a good question from Tom Pierce while those are coming in. It says, Tim, tell us about the good, better, and best tuning method.
Well, there's a lot of methods to tuning a bow, and there's a lot of people throw around bear shaft tuning, walk back tuning, French tuning, all these different tuning methods. And frankly, you shoot the arrow with fletchings on it. So the tuning should be done with fletchings on the arrow. If I take my ASA arrow, for example, and I tune it to a perfect bullet hole with fletchings, and I take a bare shaft and I shoot it at 20 yards, it'll hit the top of the 9 ring, okay? If I add the weight of the fletchings in tape, the arrow will hit the center of the X ring. So I see no value at all in bare shaft tuning. Now, I will use a bare shaft because I know the bare shaft, say for example, when I have a perfect bullet hole tuned bow and my bare shaft hits the top of the 9, or I'll have a taped bare shaft in my quiver or in my arrows. So if I if I have to take a bow apart or retune it in a tournament, then I know where that bare shaft's supposed to hit. Okay, whether it's a strip bare shaft that hits the top of the 9 ring or it's a taped bare shaft that hits the center of the X ring, I know how to get my perfect bullet hole tune back. But in my mind, the perfect tune is a bullet hole tune off of a Hansky drop away or a drop away rest that gives you perfect 100% clearance. And there's a full series up on on our YouTube channel on Gold Tip that covers my entire tuning process. I do that to every single setup that I shoot, and even from there, I'll take it to a shooting machine sometimes when I have time. But the arrows I shot in Mexico were just run through the paper tune. The arrows I shot at the last ASA were just paper tuned. Okay. And I see more variation than anybody else is going to see, I promise you, because of my drawing. Mm-hmm. So if people will follow that guideline, they're going to, number one, be able to identify if an arrow's too weak. Number two, they're going to be able to identify if they're going to have any flyers out of their system. But, you got to powder test for clearance. You got to powder tune, or paper tune for arrow flight. And that's just going to give the vanes the best possible scenario to correct your mistakes if it's coming out of there perfectly straight. It's also going to fly better in the wind if it's coming out perfectly straight. If you're shooting a blade, you're really honestly have to run a little bit of a high tear to achieve clearance. That's just going to take that arrow just a little bit longer to stabilize and, to level out. And it's going to be a little bit more susceptible to more wind drift and things like that. So, you can I never really understood French tuning or line tuning, because if my bow has perfect clearance, if my arrows have perfect clearance, if I have a perfect hole through paper and all my arrows shoot exactly the same, my arrows have no choice but falling in a vertical line.
Right.
They have no choice. They're going exactly where they're pointed. The only arrows that are going to hit left or right are the ones that come out of the bow sideways, through a mistake that I made. Okay, and I think French tuning is just simply a guy that can't figure out how to paper tune his bow, so he shoots a target at a short distance, and then he goes back to a long distance and sees that it's falling vertical from that point to that point. And that just simply tells you, hey, I got enough vane on my arrow, so it's stabilized at that shortest distance. If you got too much kick in it, it'll be hitting left and right as it goes down, down range. But if you'll paper tune and figure out how to paper tune, and we laid that out in that video series, it's really the adjustments to the bow, and nobody does it finer than Bowtech. Nobody. It is the finest bow system on the market in terms of tunability, and if people really understood that, I think they would buy their bows, accordingly. It's the details. It's the fact that, you put different weight flex guards on the bows for different poundages. I don't think people really know that.
Right.
It's the binary overdrive cam system that gives you 4 yokes to do your tuning with. And then the new cam system on the new bow that's just, another solution, a very user-friendly solution that makes bow tuning a snap.
We just got to get it in your draw length now, right?
Well, yeah. I'll take that one on the wall with a little bit bigger cam.
Oh, yeah, we might be able to play around with some stuff. We might have something cool coming down the road for you potentially. So.
Well, I would hope so.
But no, and Tom Dreyer. So Tom, he was the first one to answer the Abyss. So you get a hat, Tom. Give a quick shout out to Tyler Chubb. He knew exactly what release. I mean, like to the every detail. True Ball Abyss, flex large with straight trigger. I hope Tyler knows.
He watched me rig it all weekend.
No, that's a great job, Tom, for paying attention in there. Here's a good question from Greg Hester, Tim. Tim, I have the new Trinity Rest ready to go when my new reckoning arrives. Is there any trick to setting up the new rest? And Timothy Eaton also said, good question to that one. So,
well, the Trinity Rest is a phenomenal rest. It's just a lightened up improvement over the Versa Rest. You got 3 bearings to hold the shaft in position. I mean, it's just a rock solid rest. I personally recommend a limb clamp. Okay, you use a limb clamp on the limb, or if you're going to tie it, I don't like to just loop it. I like to really tie it and then have the cord coming off the one side of the limb. Just make sure you tie it very, very securely. But the main rule of thumb with limb-driven rests is you want to set it up to where when you let down, the arrow rest starts to drop about the midpoint of the shaft on the letdown. And what that's going to do is that's going to ensure that arrow rest is dropping when the arrow is cresting vertically away from the rest. It's going to give you the biggest sweet spot of forgiveness in the rest, and you're going to avoid that contact that happens when, the arrow reverses its paradox. And if you'll just follow that simple rule of thumb, they're really pretty dang easy to set up. That, and make sure you put the front stop screw in where the launcher is not hitting the riser. I like to run the riser or the launcher back behind the riser. That's the reason for all the set screws in the bar, so that you got extra lockdown so it's not moving around. So if you'll just follow that basic procedure. I'm using the new fiber blade. I really like it. No issues whatsoever with it. So.
That's a good point too. There's not a lot of drop-away rests out there that give you the ability to adjust the timing on it. It's either up or down.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal rest, and it was built off of basically all the failure points that I had in all the other different rests that I had configured up as a limb-driven drop away. You know, I'd shot limb drivers when they first come out. I shot pro drops, and I had problems with all of them. And so when we built those rests, I mean, the basic fundamentals of the rests remain the same. You know, it's just you built everything to avoid failure. You know, and they really are, top notch. I mean, so
That's awesome.
there are some customization tweaks you can do with it. But as a rule, it's very, very easy to set up. If you're getting highs and lows when you shoot a horizontal line, you want to tighten your spring tension maybe a click or two. A lot of times, though, that can be, if you have space in your knock set, that's going to cause up and down arrows a lot too. So you want to get space out of that gap between your knock set out too.
Good point. Good point. So we've kind of touched on it here and there in different aspects, but give us a full walkthrough of your whole bow setup you're running right now.
Okay, so for ASA, I'm running a Fanatic 3.0. I've long strung it just to hit my draw length. So I'm running 66 pounds. I'm running a 30X with a 150 grain point. I've got a 4-fletch, 2-inch Raptor Q2i on it. It's running 295 feet per second, depending on which chronograph at ASA you put it through. My arrow rest is a Trinity, Hamsky Trinity. I'm shooting 452X thread strings. Now, I do a floating yoke where I tie the full strand count up to my yokes. It's debatable. I just do it. My extra draw length, I think, punishes the bow a little bit harder, and I think it's good insurance policy. Some of the things I do is just simply for insurance too. So
right.
I run the new Black Gold tournament sight, probably the finest target archery sight I've ever seen. It is absolutely just a tank. I mean, there's zero movement in it. And the new one's even a better improvement, the lighter weight bar. I use Shrewd scopes. I'm running a 5-power Shrewd scope with a 15 thousandths blue pin with an LP light. You'll see that very, very common in ASA and IBO. Sometimes I'll run a 4-power in IBO versus a 5 in ASA. B Stinger 33-inch front bar, and I run 2 20-inch B bars in the back. Other than that, for target, like when I shot in Guadalajara, I run a 60-pound bow. Basically the same setup. I may have 1 more ounce on my 33-inch bar. I'm running Pierce Tours 300s. They're cut around 28 3/4 with 120 grain points. And I run a 4-fletch 1.75 Fusion SL. That's the new target vanes that Q2i came out with this year. And really like them. Phenomenal arrow, or phenomenal vane. I shoot the pin knock, the gold tip mini HD pin knock for all my setups. So I use a smaller Shrewd scope for that. I ran an 8-power for the first 2 days of the tournament. Then for the final matches, the final pool, I switched to a 7-power. I think that was a big improvement in clarity. I could drop down a clarifier size to the green clarifier, the Hamsky Insight Peep, and I was able to see my target a little clearer and see my dot a little clearer. I think it was a good move, and it'll just get me that much more ready for Arizona Cup this weekend. When you get in a little bit of wind, that 8-power just does not give you a big enough field of view, and it'll kind of kick your butt.
Well, that's a good point. I was just going to ask you about upcoming tournaments. So you have the Arizona Cup coming up, and then probably Reading not too far after that. What's your game plan going into Arizona?
Well, Arizona Cup, I mean, I've been working, hard on my mental game. So it's just a test of a mental game. My setup, I don't think I'm going to mess with my setup. I may go out here after this interview, and it's windy out here at the Easton Center. I may go play with it a little bit and just see what I think. But I'm still a little sick, and I only got a day, so
yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I may throw another 20 grains in the front of them arrows. But I'm just going to go down there and just try to shoot strong, stay focused, run my mental shot routine that I've been working on, and just, keep plugging away. I'm really working hard at the mental side of the game. And I know that's that's a hard thing to work on. But when you get to a certain level, it's the only thing that separates the good from the best is the mental.
Right.
And so, that's where I feel like I can get the most amount of improvement. So.
Excellent. And you have an ASA in between Arizona and Redding, I think.
Yeah, there's ASA in Texas.
Yep.
And I don't remember. Yeah, I think it's ASA Texas. I think I got a week after Arizona Cup Open, and then I got, gosh, I don't know. There's so many state tournaments I can't.
Well, your schedule. Let's talk about that schedule. Does it really mess? Does it mess with your? I know it probably makes you pretty tired, but does it mess with your mental game at all, or does being in it consistently? Does it help your game?
Well, like the shot routine that I run at Indoor Nationals didn't quite work as well in ASA. It didn't quite work as well in FIDA. It worked pretty good in the FIDA event, except I ran out of time when it was windy, so I got to kind of adapt a different routine for each venue.
Right.
I think I'm the epitome of, there's guys that say if you don't have it, you didn't bring it, you can't find it at the tournament, and I disagree. Sometimes and that just comes from experience and being, confident in tearing your setups down and rebuilding them because you know there's something that can make it just a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I shot the team shoot at the last ASA with a 4-power, and I just didn't like what I was seeing, and I made a mistake because I had labeled that lens 5-power. It was actually a 4-power when I finally figured it out. So I went and got a 5-power and rebuilt. I was going to rebuild my whole. It was just a long story, but anyway. I got it all put back together, and you just got to be able to make those decisions. I talk to guys that are 15 days out from a tournament and they're afraid to change anything, and it's like, man, if the change is for the better, you got to learn how to get to default like that. You got to learn to be comfortable with your bow setup and tuning your setups. It's not that hard to get to. If you have a draw board or a shooting machine that you can measure your draw links perfectly and your holding weights and things like that, it's a lot easier to get from point A to point Z and really, fine tune those bows. Mm-hmm. And sometimes just a simple little thing like going from that 4-power to that 5-power, that is enough of a variable that it can mean 6 or 8 points a weekend in an ASA.
Right.
So,
right.
Last year I run a 6-power. I could see so much better, but at the first ASA in Foley this year, I struggled big time seeing. And, part of it's just a change of my eyes, I think a little bit, but, it's just finding that perfect setup.
Might get a little light in here, guys. We're right by the airport, and I can hear the jet rumbling overhead, so you guys might be able to hear it a little bit. One more question. I'm actually going to give a hat to this one. This is from Adam Bennett. So Adam and Tom, shoot us a message here on Facebook with your details, and then we'll get these hats shipped out to you. But Adam Bennett has a great question. What are the benefits to moving your sight closer and farther away from the riser? I noticed some archers move their sight out for indoor and move it in for outdoor. It's a good question.
Actually, on the subject of torque tuning, that's a horrible idea. Mm-hmm. Because it's equally as bad to have your rest up close to the riser and your sight in close to the bow as it is to have an overdraw with your sight way the heck out. Okay?
Right.
So you'll want to read this article I'm going to send Todd over, on torque tuning. But what some reasons, people will move their sight bar in is like women will have a hard time reaching 100 yards at Reading or even 88 yards. So they'll bring the sight bar in. That compresses your sight tape, okay? So it allows them to reach more distance. I always did it originally is because I felt like when I left my sight bars out, it was beating the crap out of my sights. And I just kind of got lucky, Mm-hmm. And kind of lucked into the overdraw on the sight being in the right spot. But that's the main thing is you want the sight bar and the rest to be working with each other. People will move it out to change their field of view. If I move it in or out with a 7 or an 8 power, I can move it out 1 notch and you can see a big difference in your field of view. And, 1 or 2 notches from ideal is probably not a big deal. But if you get far enough off, I mean, you're definitely going to be able to tell the difference, especially when you're out in the wind fighting it, or if you're nerved up at a tournament or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, especially, and this is where people really miss the bow, is on hunting bows. Because if you look at most hunting bows, they're very high let off, very easy to torque left to right, and there's no consideration whatsoever put on, torque tuning. Most sights are in close to the bow, so theoretically most rests should be back for it. So their bows aren't in the most optimal position for a so-called torque tuning. And you're dealing with a lot of times shooters that don't have the expertise of a guy that's shooting tournaments every weekend. So, there needs to be more education on that subject,
Sure. No, that's a good point. I see that a lot. I know I hear a lot of people, just in passing, so-and-so's got his way out here. I know some people think they move it in closer, it changes their pin gaps and things like that, which it does, but it has a ripple effect.
It does. Some people think if they move their sight out, their sight marks are going to be more accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, theoretically, yes, but if it makes everything really super critical, then you don't want to do it.
Right.
Some older guys with older eyes that basically their focal points out further, they may put a longer sight bar on to be able to see their pin better or something like that.
One last question. I know that I said the last one was last question, but one last question before we end. One of our top fans popped in here, Dan Howard. Do you blur out your pin, or do you blur out the target when you're aiming? So what's your focus, target or pin?
I tend to like to see my pin peripherally and beyond the target. For target, I don't tend to. I like to be able to see the target clearly, but sometimes I like to see it just clear enough to see the 10 ring. But most time I'm running high powers, and so I'm just really want a big gold to aim at. So it gives me, it's easier for me to not miss aim a shot. For 3D, I go 100% on clarity. I want a crystal clear sight picture, and I want to be able to see my pin clean. And I will tend to lean towards target clarity for 3D and a fuzzier pin than I will the other way around.
Right.
Just because I need to be able to see that detail on that animal.
That's a good point. Well, Tim, I know you've spent a lot of time with us. I know you needed to get back and do a little shooting and working with the team there. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy travel schedule and your day to join us. It was had a good time. A lot of good questions came in.
Well, good. Look forward to working with you guys on the new bows, and can't wait to see what we come up with.
Yep. I think we're going to try to get you up here after Reading. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. I know we needed to connect there, but maybe we can get you in here live in the studio and do this again while you're in-house.
Yep. Sure, that'd be good.
I love it. Well, guys, thanks for joining us again here on Target Tuesday. Before we go, I wanted to share some cool stuff. At the last ASA event, we had several amateurs win as well, and we have this cool image we wanted to share. This is from, so we have quite a few in the photo here. So senior known, 50, we have Tom. I apologize if I butcher your name. Tim, you may know his name. Tom Pollei, Pollei. I don't know if you know him or not. He was the champ, won that class. Steve Hilbin Jr., Team Bowtech Shooter, took second in Hunter. We have Capt Brandt, Middle School Open, second place. I think this kid is consistently on the podium, another Team Bowtech Shooter.
That's a tough class there, man.
Yeah, he's a good kid. I think he's always smiling whether he wins or loses. He's usually winning more than falling outside the top three, but... Senior Hunter Tim Smith took third. Elwin Dillon, a good friend of yours in Bowtech. Elwin Dillon, Hunter Elite Champion. And then Tim Gillingham, Senior Pro Champion as well. So congratulations, guys. We had a pretty good showing for Bowtech at the ASA tournament. So make sure you guys get these in here for us. If you win, if you're on the podium, try to get us some images on the Monday after the tournament. We try to do Target Tuesday. So we want to share those. We have a good crew that run the ASAs for us that send us in photos, but we have a lot of other tournaments going on. So make sure you send those over. If not, we'll make sure we share those the following week. So thanks again, Tim, for joining us on Target Tuesday. I hope you have a good time out at the Easton Center for your last couple days.
Yeah, I'll be back to work in the morning and pull a full day shift at Gold Tip, and then on to Arizona Cup.
On
So
to Arizona.
come see us there if you're going to be there.
Perfect. Well, guys, make sure you join us next time. I don't want to forget, we're going to give you an opportunity to win one of the new Bowtech Reckonings. We're going to give it away right about the ASA Classic time. We're going to make it really, really easy for you to enter to win. All you have to do is text the word deadlock, DEADLOCK, to the number 64600. What we'll do is we'll send you a link. You have to click on the link and go in there and enter your information. Just sending the text doesn't get you entered. You need to make sure you go in there and enter that, click on that link and enter. So, and if you ever want to get notifications whenever we have all this cool live content, we have a whole new schedule coming up for you here pretty quick. That's going to hit Bowtech Live. We're going to make it super easy again. Same number, but it's Go Live, GOLIVE, to the number 64600. And then you'll get notifications whenever Tim Gillingham is on next time, Paige Pierce is on, the Outdoor Chef is on, Jeremy Starks is on, all this cool stuff we have going on. Nate Zielinski, Randy Newberg, ton of cool stuff on the target side and on the hunting side. So I want to thank you guys again for joining us. Until next time, have fun and shoot straight.